Hey everyone, we are doing Unit 6A, and we are on topic 2, and the topic for today is function notation. So you should have already taken notes on topic 1, which was how to determine if something is or is not a function. Today we're going to talk about things that we already know are functions. So the first thing about function notation is that if we know something is a function, we can give it a name, and we use a letter to name the function. So usually the letter we use is F, and that's what it says. It says the letter F is the name of the function. And it's just F because function starts with the letter F. But you can use any letter, but we commonly use F. Alright, so function notation is just a way of listing inputs and outputs. So if you see the letter F, there's always parentheses next to it, and what goes inside the parentheses is the input. What goes outside the parentheses, on the other side of the equal sign, is the output. So input, just as a little reminder, input is inside the parentheses, output is outside, okay? Alright, so function notation is just used to list inputs and outputs. Again, so here we have a function k of x. I'm just going to write here k of x. That's how we read that. K is the name of this function. So our table has inputs and outputs, but this time instead of an in, the word in, I wrote x. And instead of the word out, I wrote k of x. That's my output. But really, these are inputs on the left column and outputs on the right. So what this means is k of what input would go here that would make the output of 6. So I look at my output column, I find the output of 6, and the input of 1 creates the output of 6. Alright, let's do the next one. It says k of 2. Now this time, look, 2 is an input. The output is missing. So I scan my table, I look for an input of 2, I find it right here. The output that goes with 2 is 4. Alright, next I have, again, input is inside the parentheses. I'm going to do this one in green. Input is inside the parentheses. So I don't know what the input, I know the output is 10. I find the output of 10 right here, and a -1 is the input that produces that. Alright, here we can pick any one that we want. So I'm just going to pick something that I haven't used. Let's pick this point 0, 8. The input is 0 inside the parentheses. The output is 8. And that is function notation. Let's put one more underneath here, the last point we didn't use, 3, 2. So it's called k. The input is 3, equal sign. The output is 2. That is function notation. Alright, so next we're going to talk about how to use function notation to do two things. We're going to evaluate and we're going to solve functions. So evaluate simply means to find the output when you know the input. And I like to write here what the evaluate means is just to plug in. Alright, solve means to do the opposite. Find the input when you know the output. Alright, so we are going to evaluate and we are going to solve in two different ways. So I'm going to just highlight something that's key here. Remember, evaluate means find the output. Solve means find the input. Alright, so from a table, I see the word evaluate. That means that I am looking for the output. I'm trying to find the output. I am given in this first problem, oops, that's supposed to be an equal sign. I'm given in this first problem the input of 15. So I'm going to find my table. Input is 15. The output is -2. That's my answer. Next question I have g of 70. G of 70, the input is 70. I'm supposed to find the output. So if the input is 70, look at my table, I do see a 70, but 70 is an output, which means I don't have anything here with an input of 70. So what we do, if I can't answer that question, is I'm going to write the word undefined. And that just means that my table doesn't define an output for an input of 70. All right, so next one, solve. Remember, when we see the word solve, it means find the input. So our answer should be an input. So that means that -1 is an output. So I'm going to look at my table. I'm going to scan my output column, and I do not see -1, which actually means that I can't answer this question. I'm going to write again here, undefined, because there is no output. I'm going to write there is no output of -1. All right, the next one, g of x equals 3. Again, that means that 3 is an output. So we scan our table and we look for an output of 3. I see one here, output of 3, and I see one here. I'm going to circle those. Output of 3, output of 3. That actually means that we have 2 answers for an input. One answer is x equals -3. The other answer is x equals 22. Both of those x's give an output of 3. All right, part 2, we're going to do the same thing, evaluate, and we're going to solve, but we're going to do it from a graph. And what I'm going to do on this graph is I'm just going to go through really quickly. I want you to do this to your notes and mark some points. There's a point right here. I'm going to label it 0, 0. Here's another point. I'm going to label it 1, 2. Here's another point. I'm going to label it 2, 3. All right, let's do the rest of the points. Here's 1, 3, 3. Here's 1, 5, 4. And lastly, here's 1, 7, 3. All right, and just to make a really quick point right here, I'm going to write any point x, y. X is the input, y is the output. Just keep that in mind. Okay, evaluate. Evaluate means find the output. So h of 2 means I know the input is 2, which means I'm looking for what will replace my question mark. If the input is 2, what will be the output? So I'm going to look at the points that we found, and I'm going to look for one that has an input of 2, and it's right here, 2, 3. When the input is 2, the output is 3. So my answer is 3. All right, the next one says h of 1. Again, that means the input is 1. So if the x value is 1, what is the y value? And again, scan your points, and I can see an input of 1 gives an output of 2. So my answer is 2. All right, h of x equals 4. This one's a little bit different because the output is 4. So what replaces my question mark? Look at the points we have labeled. Which one has a y coordinate of 4? This one does, which means my input is x must be 5. All right, and then h of x equals 3.5. That means the output is question mark, comma, 3.5. Now, 3.5 isn't on any of my points because I only labeled the whole numbers. So let's find 3.5 on the output, y-axis, in between 3 and 4. And let's go over to our grid, and this point right here, if I label that, and this point right here, both have a y coordinate of 3.5. So this one is 4, x equals 4, and the other point is 6, x equals 6. This one has 2 answers. All right, the last thing that we are doing is we are going to evaluate and solve from an equation. So here's an equation. I know that f just means that this is a function and it is named f. And my function is 2x plus 3, which basically means multiply the input by 2, then add 3. All right, so f of x equals 2x plus 3. This says f of negative 5, which means the input is negative 5, and I have to find the output. So to do that, all that I do is plug in negative 5 into my equation. 2 times negative 5 plus 3. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10 plus 3, and that means my answer is negative 7. All right, so the next one, I'm trying to make that look a little bit better. The next one, f of 4. All right, 4 is my input. I'm going to plug in 4. 2 times my input, which is 4, plus 3. I get 8 plus 3, which is 11. That's my output. All right, now it says solve. Solve means that we are going to find the input. The input is missing, but the output is 19. So I can't plug in 19. It is not an input. What I can do is take my equation, 2x plus 3, and I want to figure out what x, if I plug it in, will equal 19. And now I have an equation that I can solve. To solve this equation, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and I get 2x equals 19 minus 3, 16. Divide both sides by 2, and I get the input is x equals 8. I'm just going to check that really quickly. I'm going to check that. I said the input is 8. If I plug in 8, 2 times 8 plus 3, I should get 19. And I do. So I know that that's correct. All right, f of x equals negative 7. Again, this is an output. So I'm going to take my equation, 2x plus 3, and set it equal to negative 7. And then to solve this, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. I get 2x equals negative 7 minus 3, that's negative 10. Divide both sides by 2, and I get x equals negative 5. All right, your homework is going to look just like what we just did in our notes. So you should do homework number 2 to practice these skills. Good luck.